in fact, and they didn't mention Ed Ferrara's name. And, you know, they had some Russo stooge spread the rumor. You remember that thing in the Sun where Jim Cornette was fired because he screamed and yelled at Vince Russo and tried to grab him around the neck or whatever. And after I called up and complained to Terry Taylor, my lifelong friend of 30 years, you know, I even actually let Terry Taylor sleep in my apartment one time in Atlanta in the summer of '83 when we were both struggling young, you know, people in the wrestling business, and he had no place to stay. He stayed there for a couple of nights for free, sleeping on my couch. You know, but I was upset because they lied about me and let some Russo stooge put that out to make themselves baby faces. And then when I called Terry and demanded a retraction, he said Dixie would have no problem putting that out because it wasn't true. And then when they put the retraction out, nobody's name was on it. She didn't put her name on it. It wasn't attributed, just like the blind rumor that caused the whole problem. So besides the fact of being upset at Jeff and Dixie for that, and, you know, that's basically, it's her money. It's her father's money that she's spending because she's the little, you know, southern fucking, you know, flower that spends her father, the multimillionaire oil man's money. Besides being upset at them, I liked everybody in TNA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I said, so basically I wish that it could have gone a different way, and I wish that TNA could be more successful, but it can't because even before Hogan and Bischoff came in to put the nail in the coffin, that Vince Russo and his creative direction and his booking and his fucking bullshit had, you know, basically, you know, rendered their chances of being competitive to Vince McMahon nil. But I wished him good luck. I even actually, I'll quote, "I'm sorry if anything I say or do causes you any problems, and I hope one day to be in charge of a wrestling promotion with the funds to hire all of you to work in it." But I just reiterated that, you know, it's nothing personal, but I'm going to, you know, verbally roast Vince Russo and TNA Wrestling and fuck with anything that Russo has anything to do with for, you know, the rest of our lives. And that I will will myself to, if I'm 90 years old, if I have to make it that long, if some way or another that I can feebly wheel my wheelchair into the cemetery where Vince Russo is buried and piss on his tombstone, I will myself to stay alive that long just for that crowning achievement, that moment of my life where I can say, I lived longer than you, motherfucker, and I'm pissing on you now because you're a piece of shit and you've fucked up everybody's wrestling and ruined a lot of people's careers and lives. But it was a very friendly email to my old buddy, Terry Taylor. It was also a personal email. Well, I never got a response. Tommy, I never got a response. And I thought, okay, well, you know, I guess. Because, see, here's the thing. Even though I've never had a crossword with Terry Taylor, a lot of other people in the wrestling business have. As a matter of fact, I can't tell you the amount of times over the last 10 years, especially since Terry got into, you know, management, where I've had other friends of mine, you know, come to me and say, Terry Taylor, he's a fucking office stooge, he's a backstabber, he's a liar, he's a con man, he's a shyster, he's a weasel, he talks out of both sides of his neck, that no good piece of shit, I'd like to strangle him. That's what people have said to me. And you know, since I've never had any problem with him, what do you do, Tommy, when a friend of yours calls you up or sends you an email and talks about another friend of yours and says how bad they hate him? You do one of two things. You either ignore it because that's the guy venting and you like both of them, or, you know, depending on your relationship, you tell the person that's venting, you say, hey, you know, I tell you, I've never had any problems with him.
Sure.
And, you know, and one or the other, you do that, right? And many is the time that people have said this to me about Terry Taylor, and I have said, well, you know, I've never had any problem with him. I always get along with Terry. You know, I know other people don't like him and talk bad about him, but I can't say a word about him. Never a crossword, right? Well, so I send this email to Terry, and I said, you know, anybody you care to share this with, Mike Tenay, Don West, Keith Mitchell, Dave Sahadi, Bob Ryder, the talent, everybody you know that I like, I just want them to know that there's nothing personal. I'm going to knock TNA Wrestling because their product sucks and they're stupid enough to employ Vince Russo, but it's nothing personal, and I like all you guys, right?
Yeah.
Never got a response until day before yesterday. I got a letter from TNA's attorneys. And you know, Tommy, have you ever had a girlfriend? I know you've never been married. You're still a young man. I've been married a few times, finally got it right. But You know how your significant other sometimes will say, "You don't know me at all. You just don't know me at all."
Sure.
Apparently, I spent 3 years with TNA Wrestling and all these people I've known for years and years, and Tommy, they just don't know me at all. Because they apparently thought that a letter from an attorney was going to scare me, using a bunch of big, and you know, letters from lawyers scare a lot of people because they use a lot of big words and they quote a lot of statutes, and you know, they try to bully you because they get, and especially this guy's in Beverly Hills, so this ain't no Nashville lawyer. This is a guy, they probably spent $400 or $500 an hour to have this done. But they apparently thought that a letter from a lawyer was going to scare me because I sent a personal email to a friend of mine for 30 years telling him that I liked him and that I liked all these other people, but I hate this one motherfucker, and this is what I wish would happen to this one motherfucker. Apparently, what he did was, and I know for a fact it's not even apparently, what he did was, because they included a copy of the email I sent to Terry, but it wasn't a copy of the exact email I sent to Terry, it was a copy of the email that Terry Taylor sent to Vince Russo. As soon as he got my email, he turned around and he forwarded it to Vince Russo, talking out of both sides of his neck. All these times I've tried to defend Terry Taylor, he's not an office stooge, he's not a weasel, he's not a liar, he's not a con man. He doesn't talk out of both sides of his neck. He's not an asshole. No, I defended Terry Taylor, and come to find out, Tommy, I hate to be wrong, but I admit it when I am wrong, and I was wrong. Terry Taylor is all those things because he turned around, and he didn't tell all these people that I mentioned by name that I liked them and I wished them well and I didn't want them to be mad at me for knocking TNA. He turned around and he forwarded my email to Vince Russo.
Wow.
Because Terry Taylor is a backstabbing prick. And now it's been revealed, it's been proven. I've got it here on paper. Because the lawyers that they spent $500 an hour to have write me a fucking nasty letter sent me a copy of the email that Terry Taylor sent to Vince Russo, forwarded in my email. Can you believe it, Tommy? I was wrong. I'm not a good judge of character. I don't know what to do about this because I was wrong all along about Terry Taylor. But anyway, so basically, Terry, and you know, see, now here's the one thing that I don't agree with Terry Taylor about, and you know, and I never said a word to him about it. We never had any debates, but Terry Taylor's one of these Christians. He's one of these born-again fucking people, and of course, Vince Russo's born again, and I've said it many times, I didn't agree with the first one, so naturally I ain't going to agree with the second one. But Terry Taylor, never trust a Christian. That's the word from Cornette's commentary. Never trust a Christian because they'll stab you in the back every time. I believe they're the people that hung Jesus up on the fucking deal or whatever. Never trust a Christian because they'll stab you in the back every time. Because Terry Taylor, apparently because he now has to kiss the same ass he was kissing 15 years ago that wouldn't employ him in WCW, Eric Bischoff, or because he's scared for his fucking job, or because he's scared for his Christian buddy somehow, he stabbed a friend of his of 30 years in the back and turned around and forwarded this. Now, you know, I wasn't really upset the idea that Vince Russo would see this, but now let me ask you another question, Tommy. Of course, the lawyers, they may be calling you saying, take this down, so everybody download this and spread it around to all the websites, record it, because it may not be available long. But, Tommy, what do you do when somebody calls you a no-good motherfucker and a nasty fucking prick and an abominable son of a bitch and they hope you fucking get hit by a bread truck or whatever the fuck? You can go to JimCornette.com and you can read everything I said because I don't make any secrets about anything, and if I say something, I stand by it. So it's all up there verbatim for everybody to see. But what do you do if somebody calls you these names and tells you what they think of you? You either do one of two things. You either ignore it, or as a man, you call the motherfucker up and you say, okay, what time and where do you want to meet to fucking hash this out, motherfucker? But no, because Vince Russo, and once again proving my point, I've lost a friend, but at least I've gained validation. Vince Russo doesn't call me up and say, hey, motherfucker, you know what, everybody wants to know, so, you know, why don't we do something about it? What he does is he goes crying, just like he used to go crying to Vince McMahon when I would knock him and say things to him in front of the boys when he ran his fucking dick licker and fucking disrespected me. And I would fire back. He'd go running to Vince McMahon, and here would have to come Jim Ross to ask me what I said. And then I'd tell him. And then JR would say, well, yeah, you should have said that because he was an asshole, and then he'd go back to Vince McMahon. Every time somebody says something to Vince Russo, as a matter of fact, when unnamed WWF employees back in the year 2001 gave me Vince Russo's number because they were upset because they went to Atlanta and they had been friends with Vince Russo when he worked in the office in WWF with them, and they went to Atlanta and called him up. He wouldn't even return their calls. He wouldn't even speak to them. He wouldn't even get together with them to have lunch or whatever. So they gave me his number, and I called him up. I said, you know what, you motherfucker, you fucking cut my balls off. You fucked a lot of people, and you're a fucking asshole. And he hung up on me, and he called. This is when he's working for WCW now. He called the WWF Human Resources Department, and he said, Jim Cornette threatened me and my family. I never said anything about his family. He's got a wife that must be a saint for putting up with him. He's got some kids that last time I saw them, they were fucking 10 years old, and they were misbehaved, but I don't care about his kids. I've only had a problem with him, but he always goes